Stuff. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us once again on Face the Forum run by Business Links Africa. We welcome everybody, our new joiners, those that are interested in the topic that we're about to talk about. This topic is designed for businesses that are engaged in microfinance in Africa. We have with us Sheila Azuntaba, who is our host for the day. She runs her business in Ghana, helping women and people that need financial help. And she's going to tell us a bit more about how she runs the business, tell us a bit more about the idea of the business and how other businesses can also join in this live session. Thank you. So, Sheila, our first question from the forum is, what's the strict definition of a poor woman, income level, etc.?
Thank you so much. Gosh. Being deemed poor to me is rather a very vague or relative question, because if you describe a poor woman in the UK, that's totally different. But as you said, using income levels and then financial exclusion and inclusion, I deem a poor woman to be one that has lack of access to financial tools and services, or the inability to be able to use them, to be able to become economically and socially integrated. If you look at the typical woman in a place like the UK, she has access to a checking account, a savings account, a credit card, an ATM card, and also has access to probably investment advice to be able to grow her business. Whereas over here, such basic financial services do not exist for our women. So for me, any chance to increase the risk of poor, access or being capable to use a financial service or solution, to me is such a woman to be poor. It has nothing to do with money. You can have all the money, but if you don't have the infrastructure available to be able to spend that money into viable, you're deemed poor.
Okay. Great. That's a very good question. So what came about with this idea of this business, basically?
Okay. I think we all have, how we want to make a difference. I've always wanted to make a difference ever since I won the title as Miss Ghana 96. So when I got the opportunity to start my business, I thought of a way where I could build a business to make money and also to have a sense of purpose. I come from the northern part of Ghana, where it's the most impoverished, where access and being capable to use any financial solution, it's almost like, I don't know, it's day and night. So for me, it was a way to give back, to empower the women up north, and also to be able to create wealth for the shareholders of the company. And once we were able to strike that balance, we didn't stop. We've been able to do that working with various partners, and also we have a lot of impact investors who actually do have the vision to make the average poor person financially inclusive. So once we're able to tell our story and tell them of our vision and our plan to be able to help one community at a time, we got on board a few impact investors to help us with our dream.
Oh, wonderful. The next question from the forum, question number 2, is to get financially included, there is a certain amount of data required, no less global KYC data. The current criteria means they will be excluded. How do you design a system which will be able to meet the criteria?
This is actually very difficult. I wouldn't say it's a difficult question, but it's actually one of our biggest challenges as a microfinance institution. If you go by the global KYC data, I think over 60% of the Ghanaian women or Ghanaians will be financially excluded, you know, because they don't have access to anything, even the right identification documents to be authenticated isn't there for them. You know, yes, people do have the business register, but it doesn't link them to a residential address. It doesn't link them to any form of business. So if you go by that, everybody or 70% of us here in Ghana will be financially excluded. I can only talk for innovative microfinance. What we've done differently is that we be able to onboard a lot of our customers. We partner. We work with different stakeholders in our communities. It's difficult to get the data you need to make an informed financial decision on a community. So what we do is when we go into a community and there's already an NGO or there's a governmental body or let's say, for example, USAID already on the ground, we partner with them. It's a communal approach, but then we are able to get the information that we need. A lot of the information is informal, but in the end, we are able to use that information, mine it to be able to decide whether this community is viable based on the number of agri products they farm, the number of off-takers interested in their products, the number of people within the household, the age, and all of that. We use that. It is a difficult approach, but we've been able to gather all that data. And what I have to say is that we've been able to move a step further. You know, we partnered with a group from Stanford University who have helped us build a credit rating model just for us. And hopefully we'll be able to, share it with other microfinance companies in Ghana. But what that model does for us is that it's taking all the data and all the borrowing and savings history of all our customers for the past 7 years. And we've come up with a model that will tell us immediately whether this person is a viable person for a savings product or an investment product. This is what we are using. We also use other sources or other factors. And as I said, we always work with other partners. We've never been able to do anything by ourselves. You know, we pride ourselves as being one of the companies available and open to partner with anybody. You know, when the time is there or the opportunity is there, once we get approached, we get to work, and then we are able to, come up with various products to be able to help us gather the information needed to inform most of our financial decisions. You know, bear in mind the products for the rural communities are totally different from the urban communities. You know, the same savings account that you and I are probably used to isn't the same savings account for the rural person. They are used to saving money under their mattresses, with their Susu people. So you have to go right to the bottom to understand why they would prefer to put monies under their mattresses than to work with you. So it has a lot of informal approaches to everything that we do.
Oh, great. It's always been a baffle. I mean, I've always been baffled with the idea of people trying to be financially sound, but understanding how to go about doing that. Especially people within the rural areas where they haven't got bank accounts, where they haven't got an address, even for you to be able to say, well, yes, how can I identify the person or find the person if I give some money to? How do you go about addressing that issue?
Our approach is rather, as I said, is rather communal. You know, the typical rural person wants the same services you and I want.
Yeah.
The typical rural person wants to be able to make a difference, to be able to have a household where their children are going to good schools. There's enough food on the table, and also they have something to do every day. So what they do want to be or to do, it's not different from what you and I aspire to do or to be.
Oh, okay.
Basically, the challenge is that access and capability is always the problem in education. So what we do is one of the things that actually sets us apart is we take financial literacy education very, very seriously. I mean, we work with every organization that would help us train our clients. So when there's an opportunity, what we do is there are times when we go into a community where it's not just to help them with savings or anything, but just to understand their level of like their level of education, with regards to what they know about savings or investments or borrowing. And once we're able to ascertain that, we set out the right educational material for them. Financial literacy, as I said, is very important to us. It's difficult to get them, but when you go into a community, every community is different, and every community has its very peculiar practices. You have to get to know them. It's a lot of work.
Yes.
It's a lot of man hours. It's labor intensive. But once you cross that hurdle, it is easy for you to go into the next community, because you know how our communities are in Ghana.
Yeah.
They're to each other. So once you understand the traits of one community, it's very easy to replicate that in the next community. So it has to do with getting to know them and actually making them be a part of you. When you go into a community, especially, for example, a Muslim community, you have to understand that there are various rules and regulations you have to go by. The chief imams, you've got to, first of all, tell your story to. Their husbands, you have to respect the husband's decision and the husband's right to allowing, a wife to borrow. And then there's a first wife who has to be in the know. All these things are things you have to know. And if you don't know a community at that level, there's no way you're going to be able to make a success in that community.
That's very true. If you obviously in Ghana, one of the major issues, I wouldn't say so much an issue, but of course we get to find out or get to learn is that we have the various regions, and each one of them speaks different language. They have their own culture and their own beliefs. How do you go about coping with all these various people?
That's a tough one. We try to use technology as much as we can. It's expensive, but end result works out cheaper for us. It's not, we are a microfinance company. We are not a traditional bank with deep pockets. So our cost of capital is rather high, and we don't have the resources to be able to deploy branches in each region. So where we are able to partner with a traditional bank to be able to deliver our service, we do that. Okay. And a few traditional banks have been very receptive to our approach. We use them as, the channel to be able to disperse and then to be able to do our collections. With language and all of that, we employ within the community. So what we extend our offices into the community. We've got community chiefs who are like more or less our employees, but they're chiefs who work with us. We've got community mobilizers who don't have to come to our office, but they work within the community. That's where they grew up. They know everybody. So we extend our offices to the community. So then it's easier for them also to be loyal to us because they know the people they're dealing with. They can trace the person back to who the parent is, the mother is, the sister is, or the child is. That's how we're able to reach them. One thing you have to know about the rural folks is they are very, they've gone through a lot of Ponzi schemes and they've lost a lot. So when you go into a community, one of the things, they're so wary to the point where even when you offer them free money, some of them will turn it down because they don't know what's going to come after that. So when you get them to work with somebody within the community that they know and trust, it's one of the surest way to start to gain that trust also and the loyalty from them.
That's very good. That's very important to know as well. The next question, which we've got from the forum, is what is financial inclusion and empowering the average rural and peri-urban woman?
Oh, okay. Financial inclusion. It has so many definitions. Gosh, I would answer financial inclusion from a financially exclusive point of view. When I say somebody is financially exclusive, it means they don't have access to affordable, regulated financial services, to help them become socially and economically viable. So being financially inclusive or included means that one must have access. And when I say access, I mean it's very important, because you can have it, but without access, there's really no financial inclusion. So you have to have access to useful and affordable financial products and services that meet your specific need. The financial products that would meet the need of an urban person is totally different from the financial product that would meet the need of a rural person. For example, a savings account, an investment account, insurance, a credit card or a debit card. These are basic things that other countries take for granted. But to be able to empower the rural woman or the rural person, once you have access to these things, you're able to make an informed financial decision for yourself and by yourself. You're able to know, how to plan your finances. With an insurance, you know exactly how to save towards your retirement. I mean, how many people within our rural communities know what will happen to them when they're 60? They don't even know there's a retirement age. So access to all of these things. And secondly, capable. And when I say capable, being able to know or differentiate between the various products. And that brings me to financial literacy. These three things, access, capability, two things, will be able to empower the average the average rural person in the first place to be able to actually own their lives. Everyone I've encountered in most of our communities, the first thing they'll tell you is, listen, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to wake up and, watch my kids sit at home and not be able to go to school. And I don't also want free lunch. I don't want anybody to come and give me free money, which is not sustainable and is not going to keep coming in. I want to be able to be given access, to be able to have a channel where I can borrow, I can save and plan for my future and the future of my children. And if anybody isn't given this, you're financially excluded.
Oh, no, very, very important and very good to know that. A lot of the time we take for granted, because we have access to all these facilities, we take for granted that everybody else has the same access to these facilities. Hence, we don't even think about it. So it's very important that, you came up with the idea. There's been a question about why women, why not open to everybody, women, men?
I get asked that question all the time. I think why women, because over 50% of our population in Accra is actually women. Women constitute more than 50% of our population. We're the breadwinners. If you go into the rural community, the one who slave every day, it's amazing what you will see when you go into a community. These women are up at the crack of dawn. And they don't care if, they belong to a household where 4 women are married to the same man. Bottom line is that each woman you speak to in a situation like that wants to ensure that her children are in school. So for me, it was a no-brainer. I've always wanted to do this. And when I realized that the best approach was to tackle women, because once you get the women to be economically and socially integrated and viable, it affects everybody. Once a woman is financially free, her entire household is sorted. And also they are loyal. When you work with a woman, you get the sense that she immediately is responsible to whatever service you're offering her. She sees it as a way to help her, get herself from under the table to on top of the table. They don't see it as you just being charitable. Nobody goes to them. So once they have that, they ensure that they don't want you to ever leave your community. So you start to see the progress, you start to see the achievements. I mean, you go into a community where a woman tells you that, listen, through just, me being able to save and plan, I've been able to roof my house with, aluminum roofing sheets. That alone is something for her, because she wouldn't have been able to do that. And also to be able to ensure that her kids are in school, because every mother or every woman I've encountered has always said one thing: I do not want my kids to be like me. My child can be they need to leave here. And I don't want them to go to the big city to hawk on the streets. I want them to be able to finish school, do something, and then take me out of the village. And with that, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I'm a woman, and it's almost I'm biased, I have to say, but I'm all women.
Yes, but it makes a lot of sense because, of course, these women are more principled. We might say that men are breadwinners in the long run, but the women seem to be a lot more, I mean, to be honest, generally able to save. And for some reason, I don't know how you manage to do that. I guess the reason being because they're a lot more caring long term. So I'm just going to leave it like that before I get the men out of my case.
And also my case, because it's a very touchy
yeah, it is. And, I'm glad you chose where you deal with the women initially, and it also gives you some sort of a model. If you need to expand, it's a good area to start and expand later on. So it's a good idea, really. What regions are you currently operating in Ghana?
We're in Accra, but we've got three branches in Accra. One of our policy is to have offices in the regional towns, but not serve the regional towns, just so we have access to the banks, to technology and all of that. In Accra, we are in Ashama, and then we are in Pokwase, and then we are in Adabraka. In Tamale, we are in Tamale, but we serve almost all the rural communities except Yendi. We hope to be in Yendi this year. And in Bolga, we're in Bolga, but we serve, Zwarongo, Bongo, Sumbrongo, Sirigu, you name it. Where there's an opportunity to work with women or people in a community that are doing something viable, we're there. So we work with all the, most of the paddy rice farmers in Tamale, the parboilers, the shea butter women in Tamale, and in Bolga, we work with the basket weavers, the pottery women. We work with all of them, where we know that at least at the end of the day, they're not seeing anything as free lunch, but they're willing and capable of turning something, into a viable business. We're always there to support them.
Oh, great. Good to know that. The next question is, what is the importance of financial inclusion transcending grants as a way to promote sustainable micro development? I know it's a long, but it's a question. It came from the audience, so I can't avoid it, unfortunately.
Okay, financial inclusion is very important, and sometimes when you hear about financial inclusion, people automatically think it's an NGO coming out to give the rural or I won't call them poor. I'll say the less privileged, free money. Some people would do that, but we do not, and we don't advocate free lunch or free money. What we stand for is the free money. When we talk about financial inclusion, its importance and transcending grants means that there's no free lunch. Each person in our view has to be responsible for whatever service we offer them as much as we are to them. What we would give you is to equip you with the basic financial literacy ideas, basic bookkeeping, to be able to know how much to borrow, when to borrow and when not to borrow, whether to save or not. We would equip you with that, and we expect that you would also meet us after we have actually, served you. So we don't believe in going to community and promote, okay, we're here to give you help, be alleviated with free money. Poverty can be alleviated when people are made responsible. And responsibility comes with access, with capability, education, with all of that. But you have to make sure that these people are equipped to the point they can use free money and use it to help themselves. Sometimes free money actually further impoverishes our women or our people in the community, because if free money keeps coming in, you don't, that priority to put it to good use isn't there, because you always know that there's going to be there's going to be something coming in the next day, and the day that stops, our people are back to square one, if not worse off. So what we tell them is that we are not a charity. I mean, our license alone will tell you we are a deposit-taking microfinance company. We are regulated by the Central Bank of Ghana. And we owe it to our shareholders and to our stakeholders to ensure that whatever we administer in the communities, one, impact lives, brings about some socio-economic development, and then also impacts our bottom line. Our access to capital isn't free. We borrow from the open market, we borrow from the market, we borrow from the banks. But what we do is that to ensure that we work with like-minded investors to be able to extend services at a rate that the traditional banks can't do. So that's what I mean by financial inclusion transcending grants.
Thanks for explaining that, because sometimes it's a bit difficult using words and trying to understand it in terms of or in line with your type of business that you do. How about sustainable micro development? What do you mean by sustainable micro development?
Micro development can only be sustainable if all stakeholders work together.
Okay.
We as a microfinance company, of course, we do have our vision, we have our mission, we do have a reason to be doing what we're doing. Ultimately, it is to ensure that our shareholders and stakeholders are taken care of, as well as the communities that we work with. We are what we call a socially focused microfinance, where impacting lives is as important as our bottom line, making money. But we can't do this by ourselves. You need to partner. You need to ensure that the framework or the environment, the regulatory environment needed for us to be able to do that, it's there. So to have a sustainable or microfinance has to transcend every microfinance institution. We don't even have what it takes. So we need to ensure that it is as important to the government and policymakers as it is important to us and our shareholders. That is what I term by it has to be a sustainable micro development. With us, it's easy. You get there. If you're lucky, you make your money. If you're socially focused, you stay and ensure that the communities, continue to benefit from you. But if you're not, you make your money and then you leave. But then what happens? The people wake up the next day, they have nothing to fall back on. So you have to work with policy, or policymakers have to wake up to the fact that if everybody is talking about being able to alleviate poverty in Africa, or the whole world, it starts with the policymakers. I was reading somewhere the other day that if you look at 7 of the 17 sustainable developmental goals, financial inclusion is actually a critical enabler. We can't achieve anything if we don't ensure that everyone in our country is financially inclusive. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. It just takes a mindset change, a different approach by our policymakers to ensure that we have a country where, the typical person should be able to transact business without necessarily going to a bank. And you should be able to do that, and those are the things that would make us sustainable.
That's very true. I mean, talking about sustainability, basically, in terms of business sustainability, the reason why I came up with that question was because the last session that we had with Gil Clint, where we were talking about sustainable businesses, and it will be quite good, basically, for the two of you to talk, to exchange ideas. So I think I'll try and basically get her to contact you, or you contact her. I'll give you the contact details so that you can talk between yourself and probably build up on ideas on how to, further this viable cause, the initiatives that you're putting together. Another question that I've always thought about, which is question number 5 from the forum. It's like, how can you find ways to make them impoverished? I won't say impoverished so much because I don't like using that word. It makes it look as if
like they're so lost. It's like almost like a lost case.
Exactly. So I'd say more of how can you, the less privileged, how can you make them responsible and also to repay their financial services in terms of the transactions, the debt, money borrowed from yourselves. How do you go about doing that?
Okay, let's say, you know, one thing about the less privileged that I've found out all these years is they want the same services you and I want. They want to be able to, as I said earlier on, they want to be able to make the same impact or contributions as you and I would want to. If anything at all, they feel they need to make more of a difference because they have nothing to compare their lives to. They're not, you know, they have no access, nothing at all. So for us to make them more, or to make them responsible and to repay whatever they borrow from us, first of all, is education. You know, you have to let them understand why you feel that they are important to your company. That's one thing we let them, because we are not doing them a favor. And that's one thing, one message that cuts across. They are actually doing us a favor because they're giving us the opportunity to come up with products for them when most of our competitors are shying away. So you're not doing them a favor, but you have to make them know that for you to be able to design anything that would work for them, you need their input. You know, making them responsible starts with education. If you don't educate someone as to what they should, what they're signing on to, what they can get, or what they can use their money for, you're indirectly killing them. And that's how a lot of the Ponzi schemes make a lot of money in our rural communities, because they go in there and give them the, you know, all these so-called beautiful interest rates and everything. And as a poor person or a less privileged person, what you want to do is that you want to be able to turn your 10 Ghana cedis to 20 cedis so that at least 2 of your kids are okay. But they need to understand that to be able to get that 20 cedis from 10 cedis, you need to put in some work. And that work means that you need to report, you need to understand, you need to question. I mean, we let them question us. You have to let them question you. And it would amaze you that even though they haven't been to school, they are able to calculate an interest rate like that. You and I may need a calculator to do that. But tell the poor woman she has to pay 2%. She's able to tell you that, are you serious? I have to pay 2 cedis on this? Already, just like that. So these are the women we work with. They're extremely intelligent, very enterprising. But then you need to them to know that you have to separate what you borrowed from the financial institution, what your capital is, what your profit is, and what you give, and what you should put away for a funeral. You know, this has to do with education. Access points, you need to expand your access point then. Technology is one of the best or easiest way to do that. It's expensive, you know, but once you get them on board, it will cut your risk and your cost to the, you know, the lowest or the barest minimum. But access points, ensure that they have access to you as much as you have to them. Use technology. Every local person I know now has access to a phone. Yes, we call them the YAM phones, but they're able to transact business, you know, using their mobile wallets. Make sure they have access. Make sure they can reach you. They can call you. One of the things that actually scares the, you know, the people or the rural is being able to reach you. Once you set up a point of contact within a community, make sure the people within the community understand that this is a place where they can trust, they can work with, and it's for them. So for me, technology, partnerships, and I think I didn't mention partnership, but that's very important. We partner. A lot of the times when we go into a community, they already have partners on the ground working for them. You know, we've worked in the past, we've worked with USAID FinGap, the FinGap program, where they, you know, they take the people through all the trainings, the advocacy groups, put them in groups, train them, and then once we get in, they're ready to be given financial services. So we partner with them. But you have to ensure that you're as transparent as you are as possible to them. You have to let them know. Because what a less privileged person doesn't need is to doubt you. So what you tell them from the beginning has to be the same thing you tell them at the end. If it's this interest rate, you break it down and you ensure that everybody within the community is part of the, you know, the delivery process of your product. So if the chiefs have to be involved, the chiefs have to be involved. The imams have to be involved. I mean, everybody else, the people, the rural people respect, have to be part of your delivery channel.
Oh, that's quite important. You're very right about that. We underestimate these less privileged people, but the intelligence, the knowledge is in a different pattern. I think the only difference is the fact that they probably don't speak the common language that we speak. Had we been able to understand their languages, it might be a lot more easier to communicate that information. And also, that brings me to a question from the panel. How is it that you use, what sort of technology do you use to drive your business?
Technology. I think technology is about the most important thing in trying to do our business. You know, the software that you use is as important as the I won't call it the success rate, or the success rate of your business. It's difficult to reach all these hard to reach communities. You know, some of them are totally impossible to reach. You have to, for example, I'll give you a typical example. In Tamale, sometimes we have to drive, a couple of hours to go into a community, even though within that community we have about 2,000 or 1,500 women. Now, if you don't use technology to be able to reach all these women, then everything that you make, you don't make anything for your shareholders, and you can also transfer that cost onto the women. But sometimes in these communities, they can't really even repay you back the same interest rates you would charge in an urban area. So for most of the, let's say for most of the less privileged communities, we work with funds that are relatively or cheaper than the traditional funds we borrow to service the urban areas. Technology allows us to use tablets to do everything on the ground. So we have field mobile bankers, and typical scenarios, everybody has a motorbike. You're able to reach all these communities that you can't drive into. And with your tablet, you're able to do your daily deposits, check your repayments and everything. And even though these women don't have smartphones, they do have a YAM phone. And through a short code, they're able to transfer monies from their mobile wallets onto our platform to repay their facilities. But all this has to do with education. You can have the best technology, the best, but if you don't educate the clients to actually understand and adopt it, it's useless. So yes, we've gone through a lot of hiccups or hitches in trying to get ourselves to this stage. Initially, it was difficult because we thought deploying the best technology was, but no, they just were so adamant to use it because we live in a society where cash is king. Everybody wants to, be able to count their money. But slowly, we're getting most of our customers, use their mobile wallets to do everything with us. Hopefully, we'll be able to have, the opportunity to disperse onto their mobile wallets. We still can't do that as a regulation from the central bank. But once we're able to do that, it would make it easier. We don't have to be in any community. We can service or serve almost all the communities in the 10 regions. But that we're just hoping that before the end of the year, we'll be able to do that.
Oh, that's interesting. So will this government interoperability issues that they've been discussing, would that be any good to you?
Absolutely. I'm actually waiting for the day they say, okay, we're good to go.
Oh, so it's not actually live as we speak. I thought it was live.
It is live, but for the MFIs, we still have a hold as to when we can start. We do everything else but disperse. Clients are able to repay, to deposit money, but we can't disperse onto their mobile wallets just yet.
Oh, okay. I mean, how useful would that be for you?
It will be easier. It's less risky. It's less costly. Sometimes we have to, hire a secure van to go to the communities to do a disbursement. and you never know what you meet on the way. So there you are going to disperse to 500 women in a community with cash in a van, when we can do that in our offices at the click of a button. So for us, it's going to be easier. I mean, then we can decide to go into another community. We don't necessarily have to be there. But once you disperse onto their mobile wallets, they're able to also repay through that.
Right. So that takes away the fact that you'd actually have to be carrying large sums of money across to various communities where you stand a chance of being attacked by armed robbers and all that sort of thing. Right. Okay. How about the use of is the digital addressing system, for example, another useful tool for yourselves, for your business?
It is in the urban areas, not so much in the rural areas.
How useful is it? Yeah.
We prefer in the rural areas. Sometimes you're better off speaking to the neighboring houses around the person to get to know whether the person really lives there or not. So it's still not. I'm looking for the day when we have a fingerprinting way of identifying this country.
Right. Because that will make it easier to pinpoint or to find people. But I thought they had the digital addressing system and the digital passports, or is that not been rolled out throughout the country yet?
It has. So how many people in our rural towns would want a passport? Usually, you know how it is. You go for a passport if you want to travel. So the need for a passport is not really as important to the typical farmer in Tamale, unless of course they have plans of traveling. So we do use the voter's ID card. We don't have a national ID at the moment, so we rely on the voter's ID card, and those who have passports, we use them. But in terms of trying to use that to trace them, it's usually not possible. What we rely on, as I said, is being able to ensure that we know everybody in the community who knows the person. So once you go into a community, usually if it's a man, it's very easy. They probably, have kids, or they have more than one wife, and you know everybody else. If it's a woman, also you do know if she sells something. There's always someone out there. There even enemies around who tell you, oh, she's here, she's there. So we use all those and then of course you have the chiefs, and they would listen to the chiefs. So we use that. We wish we could be able to, as I said, once some of them can't sign. So once you're able to take a thumbprint, you should be able to trace them back. And that, if we have a central database, sometimes to verify a borrowing client, we can tell whether the customer has borrowed or not just by the thumbprint, which is currently not in our system.
Oh, okay. That must be quite an important tool to have, because that would help you in a lot of cases. This brings me to the sixth question, which is from the forum. Are there different business models of financial inclusion? If so, what are the differences?
There are, I think. Most MFIs see financial inclusion differently. We have the NGOs, and we all applaud the NGOs because that's what they try to do. Most NGOs try to alleviate poverty through grants, through advocacy, through different ways, and it also has to always come from what the parent NGO's vision is. So, for example, you have an NGO like Christian Aid. Theirs is to equip most people in the rural communities to be economically viable. You've got SOS. So all these are NGOs that have different visions and missions, and ultimately hoping to alleviate or help alleviate poverty. So there are different financial inclusion models. And then you've got the MFIs, you've even got the government, and then all the other agencies. all of them hoping to introduce different ways or policies to help alleviate poverty through financial inclusion. So there are different models. It just depends on the specific model of the specific company. Our model is a socially focused one. Even though it is for a profit, our company is a for-profit company, but we do work with social investors to be able to impact as many lives in a very cost-effective and low risk, and as well as being able to serve as many people that traditional banks can't reach. That's our model.
How do you promote this model? I mean, this is quite an important aspect of our social lives, touching the impoverished or the those that are lacking funds in the rural areas. So how do you promote your business? How do people get to know about you?
I have to say we haven't done a lot of work in that. We've been busy trying to work with so many communities that we've forgotten the part of promoting us. But one thing that has worked for us has just been word of mouth, and also usually when any organization goes into a community that we've been there, they usually hear about us from the people. So that has always brought people to us to partner with us and to ask us how they can be of help. So that has helped us with word of mouth. We really haven't done a lot of promotion or talk about the impacts we've made or the number of lives we've impacted. That has always come from the communities themselves, and a lot of the times it's always come from the chiefs. We got approached by USAID FinGap from a community telling them about what we're doing with them. And that's how come they reach out to us to partner and then help us, let us know how they can help.
It's just quite interesting. It's good to know as well. Will you say, for question 8, basically, will you say financial inclusion is a way to promote sustainable micro development in Africa?
It is. It is. Micro development, yes. Financial inclusion is. Financial inclusion is, as I said earlier on, is a critical enabler to alleviate poverty. Micro development means that we have to make everyone that is exclusively or financially exclusive to be financially inclusive. Bottom line is, once you empower the micro levels, everything else falls in place. A lot of the policies or everything that, for example, this government is trying to do, talking about Ghana Beyond Aid and all of that, is to ensure that we can stand on our own. We can't stand on our own only in the urban areas, because we aren't even enough, or we aren't as many as the ones in the rural areas. We have more people living in our rural communities and informally unbanked than we have the formally banked. So once you empower them, and you can only do that through financial inclusion. And financial inclusion, as I always say, has nothing to do with just being able to give them set up banks, have a bank, offer people savings or loans and all of that. No, it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that. You have to educate. Financial literacy is as important as it is to sustaining a micro-developmental vision. So once we are able to do that, then we can say, okay, we sit back and we realize that we have a country where everyone feels economically and socially integrated. Until then, we're going to have that division where people in the urban areas have access, they're capable, and they don't even feel like they're being done a favor when we have people in the rural communities who don't have access, who are not capable, and think that we've totally excluded them. So yes, it is very, very important, but it has to be looked at from all the points, not only from the financial or the financial or from the banking point of view, but from the social point of view, political point of view as well.
Brilliant. That's very true, because a lot of these are some of the reasons why we need some sort of inclusion. We easily forget or, again, underestimate those in the rural areas, which is hence we don't include them in the planning of what's happening in the urban areas. And you're doing a great job from doing that. How do you go about promoting in terms of educating the people?
I mentioned earlier on that it's something that we haven't been able to, or I won't say we haven't been able to, but we don't do on our own. We partner. What we've done is when we go into a community and we look at the projects within the community, we try and position ourselves on the value chain. And then we decide what or which part of the value chain we want to be of service. So if it's, for example, a typical smallholder farmer, we decide that, okay, this smallholder farmer would need input. And then they would also need to be able to sell their products. So we immediately try and link ourselves to the off-takers as well as the input suppliers, where we're able to serve almost anyone we can, or we can serve within the value chain. When it comes to educating them, even though we have our initial 3 weeks of education, we try and partner with groups that have done that and have excelled at it. So if you go into, for example, you have all these advocacy groups out there or NGOs, and all they're doing is to educate and educate. So when we find out that we can link up with a few of them, we partner and we tell them that this is who we are and this is what we can do. This is where our strength is. What we lack is to be able to ensure that we can group them according to like-minded activities or what they do, and then to educate them. Once we do that, we sign, of course, we sign an NDA or an SLA, and then we partner. I think we've succeeded in getting to where we are through partnerships. It's not easy, and it's very expensive to be the one to train and to be the one to also administer the loans. And I don't even think it's actually viable to do that. It means you're almost like the maker and the checker. So we partner with companies that can do the education, and then they offload them onto us to be their financial solutions partner.
Oh, that's good. At least they can then fund all those other business areas that.
And they have the deep pockets as well. They've got the deep pockets. They've got all these international organizations helping them, and all their purpose is to ensure that people move from grants, people move from aid. I think it's everything we do, and I'm actually happy that our president is talking about Ghana beyond aid, because we need to totally get everyone out of thinking this, about aid. It's not helping us. So if it's not helping us as a country, you can imagine the rural communities. It further impoverishes them. Once you give them anything that they don't have a sense of responsibility to, that priority to turn it into something viable isn't there anymore. So for me, I'm actually happy that even at the top, we're talking about, moving from aid.
Oh, that's a good point, and it's very good to know that as well. What I'm thinking about is what sort of businesses do the people that you fund, what do they engage in? What sort of business are they into? Are they into farming, into schooling? What do they do?
Everything. Well, I won't say everything. Farming. We've got we call them beauty parlor and dressmakers. Mostly in the north, it's 70% smallholder farmers. And then some of them are into basket weaving, some of them are into shea butter, some of them are into shea nut picking. Everything for us, we don't have, we will not turn a community down or say you're not capable. Once there's a project, there's something busy, and gives them something to do, we are in there. So anything that can help them, for us, we have a term we call getting them from under the table to on top of the table. and hopefully offloading them to a traditional bank to take care of. That is what we always want to do. So we don't rule out any community, but anybody else, anybody out there, we don't, apart from Galamsey. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you mentioned until you offload them onto the traditional banks, do you end up handing them over to the banks, or when do you do that exchange?
I wouldn't call it a formal exchange. It's usually an informal exchange. But we've had clients who have exceeded our internal single obligor limit. We do have the formal single obligor limit as stipulated by the central bank, but we don't do that. Because we don't fund individuals, or if I would say we don't give so much, or we don't invest so much in one single person or one single business entity. Would rather, for example, would rather lend 100,000 to 80 women or 90 women. So we would not give one person 100,000. But once we grow a business to the point where they need more than that, of course, we'll have to introduce them to a traditional bank to help them. But before we do that, we know that they're ready. They've done their basic bookkeeping practices. They know exactly when to borrow, what not to borrow, when they understand all of that. So once we're able to do that, we actually pride ourselves, by saying, okay, we are done with you. We can formally introduce you to a bank to take care of you.
Oh, that's very good. I would have thought that you'd actually hand them over to a bank, because I would have thought that
you keep them, right?
Exactly. I would have thought that you keep them.
When we can't, because we also do have our internal practices where there are certain things or thresholds we can't exceed. Our model is such that you can't invest so much or expose yourself so much to one business entity or an individual. So when you reach that stage, you can also pull the clients back. And at least that way, they're actually more loyal to us because they're able to even introduce. I mean, we don't stop working with them. We still work with them, but just that we may not be able to meet their funding needs at that time.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that leads us to question number 9 from the forum. And it's usually when one hears about the topic of financial inclusion, one thinks of an NGO or giving one of the NGOs giving grants to help alleviate poverty. What's the difference between your business and that of an NGO?
I think the main difference between us and an NGO has to do with how we are regulated. We are a deposit-taking microfinance company regulated by the central bank. We do have shareholders, we do have a mission, we do have a vision, and we are a for-profit company. So we are not an NGO. That alone, an NGO is a non-governmental, and then most of the NGOs are not for profit. They are there to extend services or help that otherwise, a lot of people aren't exposed to, with the ultimate aim to help alleviate poverty, to maybe stop the spreading of a disease, to educate, to empower. But we are a for-profit. The similarity with us is we do work with like-minded investors of our mission or our vision, in that we work with impact investors. And these impact investors do not necessarily look at a financial gain. They look at a combination of the two, where they need to make sure that if they are gaining financially, then the end users are also gaining socially. So that's where the similarity is. But we're not necessarily, we're not an NGO. We don't advocate or promote grants or aid. We do that differently, where we would do that by empowering our clients with the proper tools, education, to be able to use or benefit from the services that we offer them.
Very, very good explanation, and it makes a lot of sense because sometimes And I think one might think, do the NGOs offer these services with an interest or without an interest to the end users?
Most NGOs I know, and I'm not going because I don't know the policies or their practices, but most of the ones I know offer these services without interest. Without interest. So, and sometimes that can be a bit confusing to the end user where they automatically know that it's a grant. Because once without interest means it's free lunch. So that can actually confuse them. And it sometimes makes our work a bit difficult, but everybody expects free lunch and until it stops coming.
Yeah, I suppose it will make your work a bit more difficult in those sense because, of course, they expect the same sort of category of service or services. What are the advantages of your business proposal to these beneficiaries, should I say? Do they eventually become financially dependent or independent on your business?
Both. The ones who become financially dependent on us depend on us to be able to invest whatever they've made as in profits from their businesses. And the ones who become financially independent of us are the ones who are able to plow back from their own resources to continue to work. We do have customers who, after borrowing from us for a year, come and say, you know what, I'm done. I no longer need to borrow, but at least I've been able to set up another store for my oldest daughter and my younger sister. They are okay now, so we'll be able to continue without borrowing. Now all we need is to be able to save and then to be able to invest our savings. So yes, we do have both. And yeah, the difference is that they do almost always move from being dependent to being independent, which is what we want to do actually, because at the end of the day, when we get them to be independent, it means that we can get them to save with us. We then are able to mobilize more savings to be able to go into other communities that we haven't been able to target or to reach.
Brilliant. That's quite a good answer. Also, of course, it'll be your ultimate aim. You don't want to be stuck with the same people.
I think we want to be able to ensure that everyone is financially free.
Yes. I was going to ask about that, which is your actual, how should I say, motto or aim or goal? What's your business goal, honestly?
Financial freedom for everybody.
Well, anyway.
Not secure, but freedom. Secure means that, yes, you will still be dependent, but free means that you are independent. You're free to make your own decisions by yourself and for yourself, especially your financial decisions. That is what we hope to do in the rural communities. Yes.
Okay. So that's a very good, I think, how should I say, proposal or initiative. Again, another person that comes into mind that I'll try and again, and she's on our forum, is the Sheila Azuntaba project by Juliet. I think it'd be interesting for the two of you to put your heads together in terms of tackling these issues in the rural areas. And the reason why it came into mind was to do with the education, because she's more focused on education. And so I think maybe if she comes on to one of your trips with you to the rural areas, at least you get to understand which areas that how you can combine that with the library issues, library setups that she's coming up with. Okay, that takes us to question number 11. We combined some of the questions, so for you, the viewers, you might find it a bit difficult following strictly on what's happening on our forum, on the WhatsApp forum. If you do, the main objective is for you to watch this interview so that you get more information and also get to understand basically the business model of microfinance in Africa. If you have any questions, what should they do, Sheila? If any of our viewers have questions, how do they get in touch with you?
Oh, they can actually go to our website and then get in touch with me. Our site is www.imlfinance.com.
Okay, can you repeat that again, because I think you spoke a bit fast. So
okay, www.imlfinance.com. IML meaning Innovative Microfinance Limited. Wonderful. So imlfinance.com.
Great. So that's how you can get in touch with with Sheila, and we'll be able to get a bit more information from her in terms of this initiative, which is a great initiative for all of us. That brings us to question 11. Are there similar businesses to yours in Ghana, which is happening in different African countries?
Of course. Oh gosh, yes, a lot. In Ghana, there are, but we all have different models. We all have a different way we are reaching the communities and our purpose. We have a different purpose, and I would say we are privileged, or we are lucky to have always worked with like-minded investors. So they have helped us continue with our purpose and our vision. A lot of us start off wanting to do what we're doing, but along the way, cost of capital is expensive. And as I said, being able to work in the rural communities, it's in itself fulfilling, but very expensive, and can totally cripple a business if you don't have like-minded people behind you. So we've been fortunate enough to have gotten a few of those, working with us. So that, I would always say, that may set us apart from the rest. So we're able to do exactly what we set out to do. But there are a lot of them. I mean, in East Africa, microfinance, it's actually one of the key enablers of the development of I would say, a place like Kenya. It's everywhere in Africa. It's the only way, it's one of the ways of financial inclusion to totally help bring down extreme poverty levels. So yes, there are lots of these models in Africa, and they're all doing well.
Are they the same NGOs that are going around in these countries, or are they different NGOs?
The same NGO. I mean, you've got Christian Aid in Ghana, you've got Christian Aid in Nairobi, you've got Christian Aid in Kenya, you've got Christian Aid in Tanzania, you've got SOS here, you've got SOS. They're the same NGOs, all of them with the ultimate aim to empower and to bring down extreme poverty levels.
So what's your business model to achieve?
Sorry?
What is your business model to achieve? I know you spoke a bit about empowering people and also enabling people to, at the end of the day, be able to stand on their own 2 feet and financially in terms of business model. What's your ultimate goal in terms of helping? What do you want to see happening?
I think a couple of years ago, I was asked a question, and I remember I said we wanted to be the first fully fledged MFI bank. And everyone wanted to understand, what do you mean by an MFI bank? Okay. What I meant by an MFI bank was to be the first financially inclusive, socially focused microfinance institution, where we wanted to be able to have a 50-50 impact. 50% impact on our bottom line and 50% impact on the lives of the people we work with. Is that achievable? Maybe not. But we are working towards that to see if it's achievable. Our model is a scalable model. We've gotten to the stage where we can easily scale up and replicate it in all regions. And ultimately, if you're able to, make people within the 10 regions of Ghana responsible to any financial solution or financial service they receive, I think we are headed towards, what we want to be. That is the socially focused MFI bank.
That's interesting. It's very good to know. Sometimes you think about this, which is one of the next questions that is coming up. As simple as the topic is, it's actually elusive in terms of what it stands to achieve. Hence the questions that I've been asking you. In your in relations to yourself as a business, what is your thoughts about that?
Sometime last year, I was asked what, how innovative is different. And I remember I said, I didn't even think about it. It just came out. I said, we just want to be different. We want to be a company or an institution that, would ensure that people see us as a financially inclusive company transcending grants. And I hadn't thought about exactly what transcending grants meant. But after I discussed it at length, I realized that, it's a very elusive topic, financial inclusion. For years, we've had a lot of conferences. I mean, I don't know how many conferences I've attended, so many conferences, and financial inclusion looks beautiful on paper, looks beautiful as a presentation in a conference. Everybody talks about how we're going to alleviate poverty, how we're going to empower, the rural people, how we're going to bring technology, we're going to drive this, we're going to drive that. But when it comes to the real work, a lot of the talking in the conference rooms ends right in the conference rooms. Nothing comes out. Everybody comes about talking about, we're social, we're this, we want to impact lives. But once you get to talking to them, you realize that bottom line, it's what are the returns? It's always what are our returns?
That's correct. Yeah.
So you realize that it is a very elusive, people would, they're beautiful presentations. Everyone talks about them. But you sit down to talk, and the first thing is, what are the returns? How am I going to make money from giving out small loans? What are we going to do? How are we going to turn this around? So it's still very much a topic that is very powerful in the conference rooms and all these seminars. But still on the ground, not so much. That's why I said it's very elusive.
Yeah, it's that's very true, because a lot of the time we have discussions, even on the forum, where we don't see where ends meet or where it ends in terms of what the discussion is about. As valuable and as innovative as the ideas are, to put pen to paper, but to be practical about it is a very, very difficult area for people, and hence that's why we invited you to discuss this issue with you, since you are practically and you're motivated and you're actually doing it as a business, running it as a business. So congratulations, you've done quite well. I'm very impressed about that, and I'm hoping that our viewers and also people that will be viewing afterwards will pick something from this, would like to partner with you. I'm very interested, and I would like to partner with you. So
thank you.
For you to know that. Now, how do you categorize people who need help, and why are they in this sort of category, basically?
It takes me back to I think by the time I'm done with this interview, everybody will call me Madam Access and capability. Lack of access, extended access by financial institutions to these communities. That's how we categorize them. Any community that hasn't got a formal access, because if there are informal access, they've got a lot of informal accesses where, they've got under their mattresses, the susu man, or the chief, or the alaji, who takes their money and gives them something at the end of the month. Very risky, unpredictable, but the formal access where they have basic, savings accounts, You don't know what a savings account is able to do for a rural person. Automatically, they are empowered overnight. Even a mobile money wallet for a rural person empowers them automatically. They're able to transfer money to pay fees. They're able to transfer money to do so many things. They're able to actually stay online because with that, they're able to buy phone credit. So just those basic things, that's what we use to categorize them. And also education. Do they even if they have it, are they capable of using it? Are they capable of understanding what they're being told or what they're being fed with? Do they know that? Those are some of the things we use to categorize our clients.
Brilliant. That's quite good to know because some of the questions that I've had coming over or thoughts that I've had coming over, you've just answered them in terms of these categories or ways of categorizing women. In your view, how many women are within regions or townships in Ghana that need help?
Ooh, a lot. A lot. As I said, women are the breadwinners. They take care of the entire household. Every mother, for a mother with 4 kids would want all kids to be well educated. So every woman, I have to say, every woman, even with the educated ones, yes, they're privileged enough to have access, to have the capability, and they do know how to use all these products. But most of the women in our rural areas do need help, and they do need to be financially inclusive. They are the most financially excluded lot in our country.
Are they in this position?
It's not by choice at all. It's not by choice. It's really not by choice. If you speak to a typical woman, the first thing she'll tell you is that I just want to be able to stand on my own. I want to be able to make a decision and not have to go to bed thinking of where the next meal is going to come from. It's not by choice. It's just by necessity. That's what.
Okay. That's very true because I guess a lot of people, of course, due to education, due to joblessness, it creates this category of people, unfortunately, who are unable to make ends meet and they need it. What can the government do, in your opinion, to help with this sort of issues that is basically so common in the rural areas?
Ooh, a lot. One thing about financial inclusion is it's recently, gained a lot of ground, and there's been a lot of progress that has been made, and everyone has jumped on it as one of the enablers to bring down extreme poverty. But there's a lot that needs to be done. In Ghana, for example, you're talking about 50% of our population, over 50% of our population unbanked. So traditional banks are dealing with, less than 50%. And some of these banks would rather work with top-tier local corporates, multinationals who already have deep pockets and parent companies to help them halfway. There really isn't much work there because you're there and there's a parent company feeding the local subsidiary. But the real work is with our rural communities. And that's where a lot of our banks or our traditional banks can't be sustainable. If you don't empower our middle class and then the rural folks, eventually one day, somebody else is going to come in and empower them, and that's not going to be the traditional banks. So yes, the government has to step in. The government has to step in. There are different strategies government has to purposely put together, earmarked to empower the rural poor. I think creating an enabling environment, to take advantage of, the fintech opportunities that are coming up, have a framework, a regulatory framework to protect the rights of the local or the rural consumer, because a lot of them are fleeced every day of their little savings by all these Ponzi schemes. We need to the government needs to come up with ways to protect them. That's very important because if you don't protect them, what you're doing is that you're creating doubt and a lot of mistrust. So they will not even trust the most trustworthy traditional banks that tries to help them. So government needs to come up with that, and of course, a valid identification, document to make them authenticated. Something that they have, you should be able to walk into somewhere, even if it's a thumbprint or something that can, lead you to where you live, what you do. All these are things that government needs to come up with, and to make sure, to work with all these groups to continue to promote financial literacy programs, especially in the rural areas. Education, it boils down to education. We need to educate them, and to know exactly which products or which institutions to work with, and to feel a part of this country, to be financially included. It's one of the best ways to get the economy, going.
Is a legislative group or a way of you and other businesses coming together and putting forth these government inclusive issues? Have they been approached?
We do. There are groups out there, and we've been approached by a few. I mean, we've been approached by the World Bank. We had a long discussion with them exactly about some of the steps to take, coming up with a credit rating model for microfinance companies, whether we need an apex body. All these are things that government is slowly waking up. No, I won't say slowly. Government has woken up to that and is working with all these partners to ensure that we create an environment that is conducive for us, the suppliers, and then the end users. Bear in mind, it's not only the problem of the suppliers, even the end users are wary of us. We are wary of them, they are wary of us. So if there's no a middleman to ensure that you bring the two groups together, then nothing is going to work. So government has done a lot. I mean, central bank is doing a lot to clean up the system, as I would say. And a lot of us need to be looked at. Our policies need to change. Governance. I mean, there's so much that needs to be done, but everything has to start with a bit of a push from the government.
Yeah, that's very true. And also, in terms of this one district, one factory, what's your thoughts on it, and how can the government? What's currently happened? Because you're already in the rural areas, do you see anything being done about that by the government?
In some of the communities we are in, not so much. I know plans are underway to start some of them, so which is good, because when you take a typical smallholder farmer, one of the biggest issues is what happens to my excess production. If I don't have enough off-takers, what then happens to my excess production? With the factory, these things will be solved. People will be able to know that, yes, we can farm and there's a factory all year round to be able to buy our excess, or even to buy all our produce. So yes, that is something that would make it easier for everybody. Ultimately, we want to be able to go into a community where if we offer any service, what we're able to take back from the community is timely. We work with funds where, we have timelines on our funds. So if you're able to help you and you're able to repay us on time, we're able to help the next community. So the one district, one factory, to me, is an awesome idea. It's an awesome idea or a project for the government. But it needs to be, we need to, I don't know what to say, but it needs to start ASAP. We need to start seeing it at work.
Yeah, I think it'd be quite a valuable add-on onto what is actually happening at the moment in the country. Every time I keep saying this, we are a developing economy, we are a developing country. Hence, we would be, treading on these sort of issues. Thank God we have a government that is in line in terms of thoughts with that. We have a leader who's passionate about bringing change. Hopefully, people on the panel, people, our members, will also be collaborative enough in terms of picking on these ideas and bringing them into fruition. I mean, we're in a position to be able to discuss this issue. We're able to talk about these issues, and we do them because we want to enlighten people about what's actually happening on the fields, what's actually happening in our lives. But not only do we want to know about it, but also to know about how these things, the impact that it has on us, and how we can make things even better. So we're hoping that the government, people in the powerful areas that can bring these changes into fruition would be, will be indulging with us to be able to let this happen. So the last question, Sheila, for myself,
Yes.
is that are we winning as a business so far?
We are winning.
Are we winning the fight of
yes, we're making some good. We are winning as a business. We're making some good progress. I'm happy with Innovative's direction. I don't think our business model is going to change anytime soon. What we do is to tweak it as much as possible and tailor it for every community. So yes, any community we go in, I wouldn't say we have one business model. I think we have lots of models, because the same model that works in Bolga would not work in Ashama. And the same product we sell in Bolga would not sell in Accra. So we are winning as a business. There's more that needs to be done. We just need to be able to have an environment where we can partner with more traditional banks to enable us have more access, also to be able to work with other partners, and then to have the regulator, put together policies to make it easier and, get us the trust that this particular industry needs. We've lost a bit in terms of trust because of a few things that have happened, but we need to be able to work with the regulator to clean up, all of that, to give us the environment to be able to do more. It's very important for us, because it's difficult when you've made so much progress and you get pulled back because of just one bad nut. So, and as much as possible, we would want a lot of help from the regulator to make sure that trust that we once had as microfinance institutions, with the ultimate aim to help reduce poverty, is still the message that is out there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sheila. Talking about the regulator, we never asked about them. Who are your regulators so that we can keep in touch with them?
The central bank.
Right. Okay. That's good. That's good. All right. So we'll try and get some central bankers online. We've got some bankers online as well. I'm sure we have our communications minister with us as well. We have a few people that are in quite in business areas that are constantly in communications with the banks, and hopefully they are all listening. Some of them might not listen as we speak, but they might pick up on this later on. We also have people from the GIPC, which is the Ghana Innovative Communities, that the government has actually created for them to be able to work together in partnership with your business and the types of businesses that are actually out there that will help bring innovation into the country. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So glad that you finally managed to meet up. It was a bit of a struggle, but finally we made it. So knowing how busy you are traveling around, not only within the country, but also outside to get more ideas and bring them back in. So you've done a great job. Thank you, Miss Ghana. And we'll be in touch.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So Business Links members, yes, Miss Sheila Azuntaba is with us on the forum. She will always be with us. So if you have any questions, any further information that you need, you're free to get in touch with her and ask her those questions. By all means, if you can't find a way of getting in touch with her, Sheila, can you tell us how people can get in touch with you, please?
Okay, you can send an email to us. That's innovativefinancegh@gmail.com. You can also send us a message on through our website, and our Instagram page is @innovativemicrofinancegh.
Wonderful. And also, if you are able to send a message on the forum on a weekly basis, it would be good so that people keep in touch with you in that manner. I also encourage all the members on the forum, especially the business heads, entrepreneurs, and those of you who are into the various type of businesses that we are not aware of, to advertise your business, talk about it on the forum, because that is how we get to know what you do. And then people that are interested will start getting in touch with you. Those that want to partner with you, those that want to invest in your business, those that want to be with you, we can all keep in touch together. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for being with us. Let's stay tuned, and hopefully we'll catch up in 2 weeks' time. Thank you, and bye. Goodbye.
Bye.